So this is Mike and I. It's from our band Nemesis.
Everybody, listen to me. I'm gonna tell you how it's supposed to be.
What's up there, boys and girls? It's the Chris and Mike Show, and today we have a world famous, like, legendary radio icon, iHeart, local Arizona media. Like, the guy has just this long listed resume of just outstanding awesomeness. It's none other than the legendary Mr. Mark Jeffrey.
Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you, Mike. So for those of you who don't know, I spent some time on iHeart, and that's how I met Mark. So the cool thing about my show, every time I'd have guests on, then we'd kind of tour the facility with Steve Giannini, who was kind of helping me to facilitate my radio stint. And the first tour I ever did, I ran into Mark, and Mark was such a super nice guy. He kind of took over the tour and was engaging, was funny. People just chammered about him throughout the rest of the day when we were doing the show off and on air. And then he and I became friends. And, you know, by the grace of God, Mark chose me to help him buy his house, which was really cool. Because
This house.
the way I look at Mark is he has, like, so many people clamoring for him and talking to him and running into him. So many realtors in and out of the building and lenders in and out of the building. And he chose me, so it was very humbling. So we've had a relationship, a really good friendship ever since. And so I kept bugging him, like, dude, we need to get you on the show, man. So,
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Happy
So
to do
here
it.
he is.
Happy to do it. I'll finish off that story real quick. So I lived in my old house for about 30 years. We're talking 2017. I'm sitting there with my wife. This is in North Phoenix, and came across a listing for a basement home. I'm in a band. Been in several bands and annoyed my neighbors constantly. And my wife plays drums and guitar. I play keys and stuff. And so we have a lot of people. We have a hair metal band, or I've been in those over time. We can be loud and obnoxious to our neighbors. So our goal was, hey, if a basement home opens up. Anyway, one day just happened to stumble on one, and I'm looking at this, and I thought, I wasn't even in the market for a house.
Right.
And I thought, shoot, what do I do? Hey, so I called up Chris. I go, Chris, there's this house up the street. Well, I'm interested in, what do I do? And he goes, what's the address? I'll call you back. Called me back. He goes, you want to go look at it? I go, yeah. Well, we went and looked at it. And I said, okay, we want it. What do we do? And it's like, okay. So he set us up, and then we went home, and I thought, oh, shoot, I got to pack up my old house. But anyway, it's because of Chris, and it all happened so quickly because he was responsive. He took care of us. I didn't know about loan. I didn't know anything because I'd never looked for a house for 30 years.
Right.
And Chris, you were the guy who set me up with a bunch of folks, yourself
Yeah.
included, to help get it all done in a short period of time. So I owe you for that one. It's the house I'm in now.
Yeah.
I'm in my basement office. I got a studio right behind me on the other side of this wall, big ass studio.
Yep.
I bring in musicians, and we don't annoy the neighbors as much anymore because
Right.
we're below ground. They can't hear us.
They just feel the vibration of the bass. Like,
That's right.
Are we
I
having
know
an
there's
earthquake?
I know there's a party in Mark's house.
Which is awesome. So, as I mentioned to you before the show, we're just gonna talk about whatever the hell we're gonna talk about. Mike, I know you and I have talked about having Mark on the show. Is there anything you want to start off with him with having this human on with us?
So just to give people an idea what your background is, where did you start out at? How'd you get into radio, and where have you gone on, and what are you doing now, I guess is what we're getting
Piece
at.
of cake. I can give you my demo short strokes. I was born in the 60s. My dad at the time was a top 40 DJ. My dad used to talk like this in the 1960s when he was on WPRO, Providence, Rhode Island. So I was born into that lifestyle. We moved around a lot. Dad was what you would call a top 40 jock. Moved all over the kind of the East Coast, most of the original 13 colonies. And then Dad ended up here, my dad, Jim Jeffrey, as the sports guy on Channel 3 up until about 1987. When I got out of high school, I was bumming around with friends back east. Parents are divorced. Dad's out here. I had long hair. I was smoking weed, doing all kinds of stuff I shouldn't do. And I thought, I'm out of high school and I want to do something else. But it's really difficult to change your life when you're in those kind of circumstances. So I thought,
Sure.
you know what? I'm moving to a new city, reinvent myself. Dad said, we talked about getting into radio. He first tried to talk me out of it, or he'd go, "Are you sure?" So I went into it. So 1982, started working for Cool FM as a weekender, mostly because I could do an impersonation of my dad when I was 19 years old. So they hired me to do oldies, even though I was just a kid.
That's awesome.
About a year later, a traffic job came up. My mother's side of the family are cops and firefighters, so I knew police scanners. My dad had small planes, so I knew how to fly small planes a little bit and learn more. And so the traffic job came up, and then for the next 40 years, I was airborne traffic guy. I ended up on all the iHeart stations: KFY, KEZ, KNIX, KISS FM, Mix 96.9, KOY.
That's what I
and-
wanted you to get to because, ladies and gentlemen, this is the voice I remember from living in Arizona from 1993 until 2009 as my traffic guy. Tell me where not to go.
Yeah, no, I tell you where to go without using any swear words. But
Yes.
one of the reasons I wanted to work in what I did for a living was traffic is it'll give you some inclination. People listening go, why the hell does this guy talk so fast? It's because I was trained to. I had 30 seconds. I had a guy like Mike going, hey, it's 62 degrees. We've got, Steppenwolf coming up. Mark, what's going on in the streets? And I had like 25 or 30 seconds. I had to squeeze all the stuff in.
Yep.
So I have a habit that I haven't lost yet about, I have a tendency to talk a little bit fast, but I did my 40 years with iHeart. Last 20 years, I was running I was on the air every day, but when I got off the air at 9, I was operations manager for the region, Western region for iHeartMedia. So my job was to provide news, traffic, weather, sports people, about 80 of my people, to 9 different cities around the region: Phoenix, Tucson, Albuquerque, Denver, Salt Lake City. Okay. And I put those people on different shows depending on what the stations needed. Wrapped that up at the end of 2022 because it was like, all right, I passed 60 and I was thinking, well, what do I want to do now?
Yeah.
So I kind of cashed in all that. I was in a position to do so. And shortly after that, I got together with a local legend, Dave Pratt, who was mornings on KUPD, a rock radio for a long time.
Palookaville.
The mayor of
Absolutely.
Palookaville. Yeah, the Red Rocker. So Dave and I started chatting, and he's got Star Worldwide Studios in Scottsdale. He said, Mark, my marketing agency's blowing up. I have less time at the studios. You know how microphones work. You spent your life behind it. How about you kind of take over and help some of the podcasters that are here, do some consulting? I was like, cool, but I set my own hours. We set some parameters because I didn't want a job.
No.
But I like helping people. I love talking to people about what their dream is, how to make how to cue up their communication skills, that sort of thing. So for the last year plus, I've been working at Star Worldwide Studios, consulting podcasters, and we've done about 50,000 podcast episodes out of that studio. And I'm having a blast doing that. So it kind of brings you up to speed on
So
where
you've
I am now.
basically been going nonstop in radio since you were 19 years old.
Before that, Mike, because here's a funny story. So let's go
That's
back.
so
I'll
cool.
just tell you because whatever. I was born in 1962. At the time, my dad was the nighttime DJ on WPRO, Providence, Rhode Island. This was 62, so they were playing hits of the time. Elvis and Ricky
Frankie
Nelson
Valli.
and all that. Yeah. Beatles weren't quite breaking yet. So my mom, who was a nurse, calls my dad at the studio and says, hey, Jim, I'm going to the hospital. The baby's coming. That'd be me. My dad leaves his radio show, goes to where I was born, and in the maternity ward, he goes, hey, ladies, he did a call-in on his own show and announced my birth. And in the background on the phone, you could hear me crying. So
That is
literally,
epic.
I was...
awesome.
Dude, I was about an hour old when I
That's
first
epic.
made noise. And then once I hit 3 years old, I would be on my dad's radio shows 4, 5, 6 times a year where he'd have me come in and read his weather or do a sports line or something like that. So I never really had a fear of microphones or anything. And so I just continued to do that. And then that's how I ended up doing. So in radio, I started when I was literally an hour old.
See,
So
I
that's
was the
kind-
polar opposite. I've kind of learned to be halfway comfortable just through this guy.
Well, and
I
see,
was always
and-
behind the scenes. I ran sound. I played guitar. I wrote songs with this guy. It was always a one-on-one or at best or at worst a 3 or 4-on-1,
Yeah, and see what your dad did with you, Mark. I did with Little Man. So when I was running Good News Arizona, the little caveat at the end of every episode, there was something that Little Man was doing. So whether he was, like chasing the dogs or walking around the backyard or staring at the sky, he was a little Easter egg at the end of every single episode. So people watched the show and then they let the credits roll, which the credits are always funny if people paid attention to that because they were, my sense of humor was injected in in the comments in the credits as well. But then there's Little Man at the end of it, just wrapping everything up. So he kind of is like that. Like, he doesn't have a fear of a microphone, and even though he wasn't like mic'd up, I was always doing something with him, you know. So Skylar's wedding, he got the microphone out and shit you not, said the Pledge of Allegiance to the crowd, and then sang a song about dinosaurs, and was like singing, you know, like
He had some moves.
I'm like, yeah, Mike's started. I'm like, well, there you go.
That's it.
That
You
was my
start him-
comment. I was like, damn, he's got some moves.
Well, you start him young, and that's it. He'll have those memories like I do with my dad. And
Yep.
B, I was from that point forward, I was never really afraid of microphones, or at least I wasn't
Right.
afraid of, gosh, what will people think? Am I looking silly? I
Yeah.
never
See,
cared.
that's the biggest thing, right? Everybody's
it.
so self-conscious when they step in front of a microphone or a camera. They don't realize you're just having a conversation.
That's it.
And you just, whoever you're talking to, there just happens to be this phallic symbol in front of you.
Exactly.
But you're still just talking. That's all
And that's
it
how
is.
you kind of calmed me down, was you said, it's just me and you, man. Just like
Yeah.
we're sitting out back after practice bullshitting or whatever. You know, think of it that way. Don't worry about anybody that's listening. It's just me and
Yeah.
you.
'Cause
And
you're
from that
just-
point
yeah.
forward, that made sense.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one question. Since you have been on both sides of the fence, from a radio station, which is clearly owned by corporate America, and you have to follow their rules, to podcasting, why would you say that podcasting took off at the level it did so quickly?
Well, I think it's because it gives individuals a voice. You don't have to do the corporate ladder or find a slot to get in the radio. I probably hired 2 different people to be on radio stations around the region. And when they would come into my office, I'd go, okay, what are your visions? Where do you want to be in 3-5 years? Because right now, I don't care. You'll do whatever I tell you to do. And if I tell you to be on some little podunk station in El Paso doing overnight news, that's what you're going to do. You're going to like it. Do the best you can. So what podcasting has done is given people a chance to kind of jumpstart that. The thing I think that gives podcast a tremendous advantage is you could do niche marketing. When I was on Beth and Friends in the morning, at times we had 250,000 listeners listening at one time, like live. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but it appealed to a broad audience.
Right.
But you're not really sure what that audience is there for. Is it because Beth is kind of funny? Is it because they play the latest Taylor Swift? Is it because we do these jokes? She would do her wine picks of the week. There'd be different segments. Maybe they just set it and forget it. It's a comfortable station. When you do a podcast, I think what appealed to people is they can get real nichey about what they want to listen to. You know, it might only have, 3,000, 5,000 listeners to a particular podcast, but you can really drill in deep and you don't have to worry about, oh, shoot, I'm losing listeners. Once the listeners connect with you and your message,
Yeah.
then, the real community starts. So I think the podcasting has the advantage of community, where you can really get to know your listeners instead of broadcasting. And then if I said an off-color joke, and I said, Manny, I'll give you an example. One time I said, while I was in my plane, I was doing a traffic report at a construction zone. I said, that's a real pain in the asphalt. Okay. Thank you. You guys got it.
Love it.
Well, I got called into the office because a couple
no.
old
Of
ladies.
course you did.
Couple old ladies complained. And I was going, well, I say asphalt all the time, but they said, well, Mark, I know, but it's
Here's
the
the
way you said it. And
context.
so let's try to not, hey, Mark, how about if you don't? And I was like, all right, whatever. You guys thought it was funny. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to set myself apart. So
Yeah.
I think the other advantage with podcasts is that you can do that. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And if people are gone, that's okay. It's on me. I wouldn't do anything on your show here. The Chris and Mike podcast. I wouldn't do anything on your show to try to drive your listeners away. But also there's something to remember when you're on somebody else's,
We've
not
already
only
done that for you, by the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, and before we get too far removed, more removed from Beth and Friends,
Yes, sir.
that's Beth. For those of you who don't know who Beth is.
Yeah. Beth's
Oh, yeah.
a sweetheart.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's showing a picture of himself.
Of Beth McDonald, who's in the Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Yep.
One of the top female morning people of all time.
Absolutely.
And it's not because women weren't necessarily qualified for that. It's because in order to be a top morning person, you have to be edgy. You just
Yeah.
do. And
She did
so
a great job,
Beth had an
absolutely.
edginess to her. And I had fun because at the same time I would be on KFYI, which was news talk and
Right.
a little bit more in your face. And then I also got to be on Kiss FM, which was aimed at kids. So
Right.
what I would do is, depending on the show I was on, I would adjust my personality a little bit. It was still me, but when people would want to get on the radio or they'd come into my office, I'd get them started. I remember I would say, be yourself, but be a version of yourself that works in certain situations. Give you an example. So when I was starting in radio early on and I started to become a party DJ, I became Mark the Party DJ. So I was 20 years old. I had a tux on. I remember I did my first 50th anniversary. I'm 20 years old and I'm doing a 50th anniversary. I channeled my father because my dad was one of those smooth guys on the stage who always had a joke ready. He just had a smooth. So I was myself, but I channeled that portion. Then
Nice.
I've been in some hair metal bands like you guys. When I'm hanging around those guys, it's a whole different form of
Absolutely.
communication.
Sure.
So it's about be yourself, but a version of yourself that can work depending on the setting.
See, and
that
I
you're
don't I don't think people realize that anybody who is insanely creative like the three of us are, we're all schizophrenic in a way. But
Absolutely.
but in a positive way, because I can do the same thing, Mark. I can turn on the real estate guy. I can turn on Chris, the rock and roll lead singer guy. I can turn on the podcast guy. I can turn on the Good News Arizona guy. I can turn on that Real Talk USA guy. It's all different niches of who you are, and those personalities just kind of break through on their own because it's who you are, but it's just a piece of who you are, and everything else is still genuine and transparent and engaging.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking the other day, somebody made a comment, I can't turn my mind off. Right. And later on in the day, I just had a thought. I'm like, that's cute, because as a musician or as just a part of a band in general, even if you're the singer, the timing that is involved, if you're going, let's say 160 beats a minute,
Right.
your brain, the synapses are firing at a level that most people have never experienced in their life, right? So when the three of us say, man, I can't turn my mind off, it's at a level that is on steroids to people that make that comment,
That's right.
Like, you don't understand. I have a symphony going on in my head at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to start firing some questions at you, Mark. So because you've had such a long, illustrious career in radio, and again, because you started out not just doing traffic, right? So you were DJ and things like that. So it was, at any time during your career, was there a certain song that you played that you knew once you heard it, like this band was going to explode, and then they actually exploded onto the scene?
Great question.
1,000%, because it's the reason I was only fired once. I was on the radio for 40 years.
Okay.
I still fill in here and there, but anyway.
Right.
I was on the radio every day for 40 straight years, and I only got fired once, and that was for my very first radio job. So my first radio job was a country station. Okay, so my dad's Channel 3. He's the sports guy.
Yeah.
And I started applying for jobs, and I had two offers. The Storm to do overnight weekends here, which was like, hey,
the Storm.
we know Zeppelin has hits, but we're going to play the songs that weren't Zeppelin hits,
Yeah.
but they should have been. It was that kind of egotistical, we know
B-side.
music. And,
Yeah.
Okay, so it was that overnight
My
weekends.
songs.
Yeah. Or it was KCKY, a country station in Coolidge, where I'd be full-time afternoons and music director.
Oh, nice.
And so I went to my dad. I was like, I don't even like country music. And he lit into me. He goes, are you a broadcast professional or not? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes, you won't like the music you play anyway. So I took the job.
Good
at KCKY. Yeah, he said, you got to suck for a long time, son. And you're going to, you need to get used to the process where you sit down, you introduce a song, you're going to give a message, news, whatever. So I took the country job, right? 2 months into it, 2.5 months into it, my boss leaves on vacation. He tells me before I go, no, I'm music director. So I pick what's in the rotation, but I would go over it with him. He goes, don't put anything in hot rotation till I come back. Hot rotation.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, explain hot
Yeah,
rotation.
hot rotation means that every radio station has a clock. And if you look at a clock, it's like we're going to play a top 40 hit here, 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 and here.
Gotcha.
And after the other spaces, we'll play a hit from last year, here, here, and here. And then twice an hour, we're going to play an oldies hit. Okay. So that's how your clock was. Nice. So he said, don't put anything in hot rotation, which means don't put in anything that's going to run like once an hour constantly because you think it's a hit. I was like, fine. He takes off. Anyway, I would get all the records would come to me. I'm listening to them. And then I heard Alabama's Mountain Music.
Okay.
And I don't like country music, but I was like,
That is a good song.
Son of a bitch. That's
And it's poppy.
and it's poppy. And I was
Yeah.
like, but he said, don't put it in. I'm driving home. I'm listening to KNIX, right? The country leader in the country,
Yeah,
literally.
absolutely.
Yeah.
KNIX has it in hot rotation.
Yeah.
Because I could tell because they were playing it so often.
Sure.
And I was like, so I drove back the next day, and these were records, and what you would do is put a little red sticker on it, and you'd put it in the hot rotation slide. So you'd
Okay.
take the record out, play it, and you put it in the back.
Was it a 45 or the full
It was a
vinyl?
45. These are 45 records.
Okay. Okay.
Let me
So
ask
I
you a
put it-
quick question about
Oh,
that.
sure.
Were those spots guaranteed to certain labels? Like, the whole payola
No.
thing?
Well, okay, I'll answer it this way. Yes, that happened a lot. No, because my station was a little podunk station in a home down in Casa Coolidge, and no sound guy or no record guy would drive down there to give me Coke, if that's what you mean. But later on, when I worked for Power 92, well, no, later on when I worked for Power 92, I saw it all because we were a large Phoenix hip hop
It was.
station.
Yeah, you were.
And you bet your ass that those record guys, what do you want? Okay, so there'd be some drugs or whatever, but it wasn't necessarily by that time money. It would be stuff. It's like here's some dinner passes to Tarbell's. Here's some, whatever. So
band
they
merchandise,
greased
all
the
that kind of
wheels.
shit. Yeah.
So to answer your question, Mike, yes, that happened up until not too long ago, and then corporate radio took over, and the favors are a different way happening in big cities.
Sure.
Favors are a different way.
Yeah. So the favors are happening a different way, but not on a local level. Exactly. So I put in Alabama's Mountain Music into hot rotation, and we're getting a great reaction. Listeners are calling in going, love this tune. And I'm thinking, I don't like country music, but dang, play me some mountain music. Okay. Yeah. So my boss comes back, and his first day back, he did his show just before me. And he goes, I want to talk to you after my show. I said, cool. And so he brought me in his office. He goes, hey, dude, you put Alabama's Mount Music in hot rotation. What did I tell you? I go, no, dude, I didn't put in Willie Nelson's Always on My Mind. I didn't put that in hot rotation. I knew that was going to be a hit. I gave him other examples. Yeah. And we went back and forth. And I was arrogant at the time because the dude literally knew less than I did because I grew up around radio. My mistake was letting him know that and telling him to F off. And he said, you're fired. So I was fired on the spot. So that was 2.5 months into my radio career. Never got fired after that. Learned a lot of lessons about that. I was right, but
You
I
learned
just
where
went
the
about
line
it.
was, right?
I did. I learned, and that
I
always
think all
kind of
three of
stuck
us would
with me.
admit that we found the line in whatever subject. we
Whatever.
broached.
It's like, okay, because
We're
I was,
those people.
and the sad part, Mike, was I did know more about radio than that guy. He was a nice guy, and I won't say his name, but it's like, dude, I grew up in the business. You're doing this wrong, man. You're just, the way you do your breaks is wrong. You come out, you play 2 slow songs in a row. You don't do that. You never play 2 slow songs in a row. At that time, you didn't play 2 chicks in a row. You just didn't,
Right,
you
and
just,
see that's my biggest problem with country music now because Mike and I have talked about music all the time. Like we like everything up and down the dial, right? Well, Nikki and I go country dancing Saturday nights at Denim and Diamonds, right, in Mesa, and they used to have this really cool format where they play all these upbeat songs, then they'd throw in 2 to 3 line dances, and then they'd have a couple slow songs coming out of that, rightfully so, because line dances, get all the women sweaty and all that kind of shit. And then
we like sweaty women. Go ahead.
We do, and we like them bouncing up and down. We like watching shaking their ass and stuff.
Having
there's
fun.
There's nothing better than watching your wife shake her ass on a dance floor with 100 other women. Just saying. So
Nobody's arguing.
no, but now they've kind of evolved that shit to where there's too many slow songs and stuff. And so when we're heading out there, we put on a country station, just kind of whatever. And there's so much slow music now. It's like country should be upbeat. I mean, I get the old school country. I grew up on Conway Twitty, Charlie Pride, Oak Ridge Boys, Statler Brothers, all that stuff. Eddie Rabbit,
Eddie Rabbit. Yeah.
right.
Love a rainy night.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but their upbeat stuff is so much more engaging, I think, than the sappy little slow stuff because you
Agreed.
can't. Nobody wants to dance like this on a Saturday night. Oh, it's like pick it up. Even some of the kind of the pop rock country guys like Stapleton, really good voice, kind of like his lyrics and shit. But so much of his stuff is so slow and boring. It's like, come on, man. Take advantage of your raspiness. Take advantage of that growl and fucking launch out. Do some heavy
Listen to
hitting
some Bob
stuff.
Seger.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Love Bob Seger.
Who doesn't love Bob
Got to
Seger?
interview
Thank
him a
you.
long time ago. That's a whole nother
Okay, so
story.
that was
That's
that was going to be my next question. Out of everybody you've ever talked to in your 40-year
shit.
career, what would you? I don't want you to go down the path of every single interview because that would probably take you forever. But like, what are the top 3 interviews that you've done, and what sticks out most in your mind about those?
Okay, well, first I will start with Bob Seger because it was right when I started. So this was the Against the Wind tour. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Against the Wind and all that. And I was already a Seger fan because I love Turn the Page. That song hit me in a lot of ways because I was that kid. I had long hair. I moved around a lot. People made assumptions of me when I walked into a new school and whatever. And
okay, so Turn the Page question. What do you think about Metallica's cover of Turn the Page?
Love it because that's the version our band used to play.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because we would... Dude,
yeah. Now, and obviously you saw the video of Metallica's Turn the Page, right?
Yep.
And the contrast between Seger's and Metallica's, I think, is just genius because I never would have thought of that approach.
I know.
Until and being a father, when I first saw the video, I was disturbed. I'm like, what the fuck did they do to Bob Seger?
Yep.
But then as you listen to it, it just
Wasn't
grows
that
on you.
Wayne Isham, Mark?
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
Amazing,
Cutting
amazing
edge.
musical director.
Yeah. So go back to your story about Bob Seger.
Yeah, so the early 80s Against the Wind tour. So Dad's working at Channel 3, as I said, and I was killing time. So I was in the Channel 3 studios a lot when I wasn't doing my radio work, whatnot.
Yeah.
And because it's like I had the codes to get into an FM TV station. You know, it's like I'm sitting there on the, even when my dad wasn't there, the guys knew me. So
That's cool.
anyway, I saw up on the assignment board, it said Bob Seger Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And I saw the cameraman's name who I'd been introduced to. So
Madhouse
my
on
dad
McDowell.
sits down. What's that?
The Madhouse on McDowell.
The Madhouse on McDowell. So my dad sits down at his desk and I said, hey, Dad, what's up with that? He goes, Bob Seger, that means that I go, I know what it means, but he goes, you want to go? And I go, oh, hell yeah. So he calls over the cameraman. He goes, hey, is it okay if my son is the grip on this? And grip means I carry the battery pack and everything else. And the cameraman goes, hell yeah, because then he doesn't have to. So the cameraman and I were strung together with about a 10-foot heavy cable because he had a big shoulder cam and I had to stay within 10 feet of him the whole time.
Sure.
I had battery packs like bandoleros on my, so I was all loaded up. I was, but that meant, so we went over at 4:00 because we were going to film sound check and then we got to interview Bob Seger.
Cool.
Now the reporter, Alan Rappaport.
I remember him.
Yeah, Alan Rappaport. As we're driving there, he's going, you guys, I got to admit, I don't know much Bob Seger. I go, I effing love him, dude. And so I was feeding Alan questions to ask him.
Oh, that's
that went
awesome.
back to night moves and things like that.
Yeah,
And the Against the Wind tour, and the Against the Wind really was a commercial success. He'd already had it, but this made it nationwide. So I'd have to say that was because I sat literally 3 feet away from Bob Seger as he chain smoked. And he even says in one of his songs that he smokes four packs of cigarettes a day. He chain smoked but I was just sitting there and he had these stories. And so I'm feeding the questions in real time to the reporter so he can ask them. And then, but anyway, so I kind of got to interview him. As far as other people, gosh, I'd rather give you examples of people I was on the air with, some super talented radio people. Like you have Beth McDonald. I spent a lot of time with her and how her brain works. One guy was Danny Bonaducci, who was when
Partridge
he was
Family.
at Power 92 back in the day. They brought him in as a morning guy.
Whatever happened to him?
He ended up being a DJ in Seattle for a number of years. Successful morning guy.
He's done
Great
a million
talker.
episodes of World's Dumbest too.
Yeah. He did everything. He was he would say it if he was here. He was a media whore. What do you want him to do? He recently retired because he had to have brain surgery, which he's recovering from. And I believe he's living in Palm Springs. But so I really enjoyed. But you guys, you said not to give you a list.
No, you can give me a list.
One of the advantages of me. Let me set the stage for you. So from 2012 until 2022, I worked in the iHeart building. And in that iHeart building, you had 8 radio stations, okay?
Sure.
You had Kiss FM, 95.5 The Mountain. I'm counting down the hall. 95.5 The Mountain, Mix 96.9, KNIX Country, KEZ. You had KFYI, you had Extra Sports 910, and you had KOI, a 3-letter radio station that for the most part would play classic hits. Because of those 8 different stations, each one would have different types of celebrities or musicians in to serve that station. So we literally had everybody. I remember seeing Taylor Swift when she was 13. Her mother paraded her in, she performed for it. Justin Bieber came in as a kid. Because we were such a large media presence, we had 43% of the Phoenix listenership. So I mean, there was just always these celebrities coming in. So
That's crazy. 43%.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so typically, just in case you join us, boys and girls, this is Mark Jeffrey. He's an icon in the radio industry in Arizona. His dad was in the radio industry, TV industry forever and ever. So he and I met years ago. I've been bugging him like hell to come on the show, so here he is. So we're talking about his experience and his life behind the microphone. So this will be a good one, I think, because you always remember the ones that pissed you off. So in your time. Right at iHeart, let's just narrow it down to iHeart because, like you just said, 8 different stations, so many people coming in and out. That's where you and I met. Yep. Who can you remember one single artist or group that you just absolutely met and saw like, wow, these guys are just fucking assholes?
Well, yeah, I'd hate to say that because I'm not a negative guy.
Okay,
And I'll say it this way. Okay, so I was on the air every morning. I was on radio, Phoenix Radio at 6:01 a.m. for 40 straight years, okay?
Yep.
And so I would be on till 9 o'clock. I also did split shift for about 27 years. I'd be on in the afternoon. But let's talk about mornings.
Okay.
When you bring any musician in the world,
Yep.
at 6:30, you're parading him into a studio and he just did a concert, maybe the night before, and he's got a concert your time that night.
Right.
He's not at his best.
Okay.
That's a great way of putting it.
I can't tell you how many guys that came in. They were quiet. They had bags under their eyes.
Yeah.
I would get them coffee.
Yeah.
Artists, but they're not. It's like now we're a bunch of morning radio people.
Right.
I'm a spaz. So,
Yeah.
dude, I wake up in the morning like this now,
Yeah.
and you're probably
Yeah.
thinking, "Oh my God, how does your
Let
wife
me ask
survive?"
you. Let me ask you
go.
that question in a different way.
There you go.
Okay.
Who genuinely acted like they wanted to be there, and who acted like they were just going through the motions the most to you?
That's a good question.
Instead of like they were assholes, they were just
I
like,
just-
oh
you know
my
me.
God, it's just another interview.
Yeah.
I think I'm more interested in who did you think genuinely acted like that this is my life and I love being here, and if you want to keep it positive.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
I'm
well, let's
interested
start with. Do you
in
remember the
that.
band Nelson, the two
Yes.
Nelson boys?
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Can't live without your love and affection.
Dude, and the sons of Ricky Nelson
Right.
and the grandsons of Ozzie Nelson.
Yes.
And they're so lucid and non-drugged up. I talked to those guys. They talked to a group of us for like 2 hours.
Gunnar and Matthew, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just fabulous, nice guys. Just so glad to be there. So giving of their time as we brought people in. They did an acoustic show for us with that crowd. I'd also put in Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20.
Nice.
Sweet.
Didn't know him. Sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, as they were coming in, we knew they were going to come in the next day. So Chris Barber, one of our engineers, they're great. Chris Barber, great engineer here in Phoenix for a long time, came to me, Mark, you're a musician. I know you play keys. Dude, I need a keyboard stand and I need it for tomorrow morning. I said, cool. I got several. I play keys. I'll bring one in for you. I didn't know, but that was for Rob Thomas.
Oh, right
Rob
on.
Thomas said, yeah.
Awesome.
So I have pictures of Rob Thomas not only used my keyboard stand, but used my microphone stand because he had to have for people who are just listening.
Sure.
And I'd see it. He required a stick microphone. He didn't like one on an angle because he was used to holding a stick microphone with a round, heavy base to it.
Yeah.
That's what he used.
Yeah, the old
I
school mic
had
stands.
one.
Yeah.
We didn't have one anywhere. We had 8 radio stations, dude. We looked everywhere. we didn't
But
have
that-
one
but
there.
That's because it's because
Well,
it's a
because all of
band.
ours were
It's-
mounted
right.
like ours are mounted. You know, they were all
But
mounted
what-
mics. Yeah.
But what you're talking about was what we used on stage because I used that for years too.
That's
you like
absolutely.
you like the weighted bass because then you can get rocking with the song and the motion and stuff, and so I
It's
get
And
it.
it's
style,
got a heavy
right?
bass to it,
Yeah.
and you can have a lot of fun. You can roll
Exactly.
it, whatever.
Uh-huh.
So Rob Thomas was super giving. Also, I'd like to point out Lady Antebellum because
I like that band too as a country band.
dude, and I saw them before they were established. So here's what happened.
Nice.
And this would happen often because we had 8 radio stations.
Right.
What would happen? We had a performance studio. And 2 or 3 times a week, a band that you may or may not have heard of would be in that performance studio because all they want to do, hey, can we just come demo for you iHeart guys? Because iHeart Media, the largest media company in the world, we had 850 radio stations, which was 4 times more than any other entity on the planet. Okay.
Yep.
So pleasing iHeart could go a long way, right?
And
you get on a
pissing
couple
off
of
iHeart and pissing off
The
iHeart
same
would go
thing.
the opposite
Exactly.
direction.
Exactly right.
Giannini told me many stories about the bands that came in and were just assholes, and you never heard from them again.
Yeah. So we would get alerts. Hey, so and so. I would hang around. I'd go have lunch up in the performance studio if there was any band there at all. I'd just sit in the back, eat my sandwich, and watch many bands that would never amount to anything.
Right.
They sounded good. So one day it was like Lady Antebellum. Never heard of them because they weren't out yet.
Yeah.
And so they walked in, they did an unplugged acoustic set, and I was like, holy crap.
Really?
They were tight. They were
So
on it. They were
talented.
pleasant. They were engaging. They took
on.
a couple of requests of some classic oldies. And I'm not even a country fan, really. I was sitting there eating going, those people are good. They're polished. They walked in. They said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. They said, thank you. Because if you could get yourself on KNIX, boy, you could really skyrocket yourself in a hurry. It would really help.
KNX was so I know when
a
I
monster.
grew up, KNX.
Same with Travis Tritt, super nice guy.
Oh, right on.
You know
Always
what? All
liked
the
his
country
music,
guys, I
too.
have to say, most of the country guys were, you know.
Did Garth Brooks ever come through Phoenix?
Garth Brooks, sure. KNIX broke him. When he gave his acceptance speech to the Hall of Fame, he mentioned KNIX.
Okay.
Because we were
That's
one of the
cool.
first stations to play him
Oh no shit.
That's very
back
cool.
in the day. Yeah.
Right on.
Super nice guy. So my interaction with him was just a couple of words. But let me set the stage for you guys this way, because I know you keep saying icon. When I got
you are
into-
an icon. You're a
well,
legend.
no, I
Mark.
appreciate it, but I think of myself.
Mark's really humble, boys and girls. So he doesn't really think that like Mike said. Like Mike remembers hearing Mark his entire life.
Oh, your
living in
voice is
Arizona.
just so familiar to
Right,
me. You know, it's
right.
like I'm talking to one of my friends, and I
So-
just met this
so-
guy. So
right,
that's
so-
how
so-
familiar you are to me.
I appreciate
and that's Mark's personality, Mike. To be honest with you, that's just like the first time I met him. Really, it was like this guy's my friend, and I just met him. But he
Yeah,
was
this
so
is amazing.
engaging.
I'm having a blast.
and
Good, good.
so like involved in.
We'll have
in
to
my
jam
little-
together, Mike.
And yeah,
Absolutely.
so involved in my podunk little show, but he made my guests feel that much more important because he took over the tour and was like showing them all the things. So but that's just Mark.
That's so
Mark is a
cool.
very giving, humbling.
We had a blast.
You know.
And I appreciate that. And some of the way I got there is because my dad raised me that way. I grew up around a lot of stars that my dad knew, so I could never get ahead of myself because you guys, my dad was on television.
Sure.
You could be on radio and I could walk around, nobody knows who I am.
Right.
Try walking around with a guy like my dad who's on TV every day. I mean, in the city that he's on, because John Hook's one of my best friends. So when John Hook and I run, they don't look at me.
No.
John Hook looks like he's on Channel 10, Fox 10 here. He's the afternoon and nighttime anchor.
Yeah.
Been so for a long time.
Yeah.
So when I started to get into radio, my first goal was I wanted to be a cool nighttime rock jock. I wanted to play Bob Seger. I was in love with the early metal, even Alice Cooper, things like that. Loved the Scorpions and got in. So I wanted to play that music, right? But as I got into radio, I had a choice when I was working for Cool FM, Cool AM and FM. We were playing classic hits and everything like that. Great opportunity. A job for traffic started. It was open. So I would be on Cool AM and FM.
Right.
In the morning and afternoon on both. So I would be on 4 different radio shows.
Right on.
2 morning, Cool AM and FM, 2 afternoon, Cool AM and FM, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Cool AM and FMs were ranked top 10 in the market.
Right on.
So I went to my dad and we had a long talk about it. And so what I determined at that time was I could fight and scratch to have my own show, or I could do what I always did. And I'm like a good offensive lineman on a football team.
Okay.
I don't need the accolades. I want to be on the winning team.
Yeah,
that puts me on the other side of the velvet rope. That's why I joined bands to play keys. I'm in the back. I sing backup.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this is awesome because
Amen,
I didn't need to be the Chris guy out in front, you know.
Right.
I would align myself with the talented people, so I
We
get
have
to
that
go
in
too.
common.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it allowed me. So what I did in radio, that's what I was allowed to do because I was on a bunch of different radio stations. A lot of people don't know this, but when I did traffic in the morning, I would be on like 4 stations live at once. Because they each did breaks at different times. So I switched from one to another to another to another.
Yeah.
And the people who listen to each one wouldn't necessarily know I was on the other.
Because they think it was recording because you sounded the same.
Yeah. Or it's like, if you're KNIX, you're not listening to KISS FM. Ever.
Well, unless you're someone like me that channel search.
Well, you
so when
guys-
a commercial would come on, I'd be like, oh, here's this station. Then I go, Mike, fuck, he's there again. Like, you know, and then
You
you
can't
listen
get
to
rid
the
of
song,
me.
and
Can't
here
get
it
rid
comes
of
again. Like,
Well, the reason why I'm annoying to you is because according to my wife's calculation, and I kind of agree with the math, although I think it's maybe a little low,
Yeah, hi,
or a little
Jackie.
high, is, Jackie's, my wife, I've done 750,000 traffic reports in Phoenix.
Holy shit.
And so here's the advantage. What I learned, because, okay, I was a little maniacal, you guys. So not only did I, by taking traffic, I got to be 4 times an hour on some of the biggest shows in Phoenix in the morning.
Sure.
The advantage, okay, so I said this to Dave Pratt the other day, longtime morning guy. Talked about to Tim Hattrick on KNIX. He's still there.
Yep.
I asked Dave Pratt when we were just joking with somebody. I go, how many times did you say your name during your show, Dave? And he was going, I don't think I did. I go, how many times did I say my name? At the end of every goddamn traffic report.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So whose name? So I did 750,000 traffic reports at the end of every one of those.
Yep.
Mark Jeffrey, Valley Traffic.
Yep.
Or Mark Jeffrey, KEZ, or
Yeah,
whatever.
Chris didn't have to tell me who you were. He's
No.
like, "Do you remember Mark Jeffrey?" I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
traffic."
Dude, so it's I appreciate it, but that's so part of it was like I was thinking, yeah, hell yeah. So when I was doing there was a time on KFYI when we did traffic, we pushed news in the morning at one point during the format changes, where I would be doing traffic 6 times an hour. Dude, my name's at the end of every one of those
Every
reports.
single
So
time.
Mark Jeffrey, KFYI in the sky. Mark Jeffrey, KFYI in the sky. Mark Jeffrey, so
Now, are you a contract employee to every one of those stations? Is that
no,
how
I was
it-
an iHeart employee.
Okay, so
So iHeart paid me. So I was in a weird position. So I was taken out of the iHeart Phoenix radio budget for some of my pay. And then I was taken out of what was called the Total Traffic and News Network budget on a national level because I coordinated news, traffic, weather, sports to a bunch of cities and states in this part of the United States. So if you don't mind, I'll tell you in 1 minute what that meant. Let's say, Mike, you own a radio station, you're in El Paso, Texas. You don't have a lot of money, but you got a morning guy, and it's going to be you, Mike, and it's your station. Okay, cool.
Congratulations,
You're the
Mike.
morning guy.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's going to be a rock station. It's going to kick ass.
Morning for
you're
Mike.
Yeah. It's the station's ranked 23 in El Paso, but you have ideas. You're going to flip it around. You're the morning guy. And then you've got enough money where you can hire a pretty good afternoon person. For middays, you're going to pipe that in from another. You're just going to pay a syndication to bring it in, whoever that might be. Not hard to do. Same with your overnights. So you and I connect because usually I would seek you out and go, hey, Mike, do you want news? And you go, yeah, I want news. I can't afford it. I go, you don't need to afford it, dude. I'll get you a news guy and I'll send you 10 different demos, male, female, young, old, and of different people reading the news. You're going to pick one. You go, I like this guy. I like Stan. He sounds good. I'm going to say, cool. You're going to get Stan to do a news for you 4 times every morning. He'll send it at the top of the hour in a file. It's going to go right into your program log. You don't have to do anything but play it. At the end of that newscast is a 15-second commercial. That belongs to me. You get your talent that you can't afford. I'll get you LA level talent. Do you want a weather guy? Do you want a sports guy? Do you want country news guy? I can get you whatever you want. And at the end is a 15-second commercial. So for iHeart, for my 9 cities that I mentioned earlier, I gathered up all those commercials, sent them to New York corporate in iHeart in New York. And then they would sell those to, if there was a sponsor going, we want to appeal to 18-year-old females. They're going, cool. All right. We're going to put you on in the morning on Kiss FM in Phoenix. We'll put you at the end of the newscast there. We've got the KRQ in LA and so on and so forth. So what I did was I provided talent to radio stations that otherwise couldn't afford high-level talent.
That's
See,
cool.
that gives people a behind the scenes of how the radio business actually works and where those personalities are coming from. And because I think people understand they're not always local, but they don't understand where they're coming from, you know?
Well, and what's impressive about that, Mark, you did that in exactly 60 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Because I watched the clock. I wanted to see, like,
Of course
is he
he
really
would.
going to do this in 60 seconds?
I don't even have
I
a
was
clock.
not timing
guys.
you.
Like, that's impressive. That's oh!
No, that was my gig, buddy.
I know.
It's funny how him and I are OCD differently.
Oh, you and I?
Like things that I care about, you don't care about, and things. A lot of things
Well,
we
I-
have in common, but there's certain things like that I would have never. I didn't even think about it.
Because he said it, I was like, oh, I'm going
know.
I just, when he said it, I just looked at the clock. I'm like, okay, let's see.
That's what
And then,
makes us amazing,
like,
brother.
There it was.
Well, and that's kind of built in. One of the things I do now, and I really enjoyed, is I go to networking meetings, and I'd never done that before. A, because I didn't have time. B, because I mean this without ego. I didn't need to network.
No.
I was Mark Jeffrey. I worked at the biggest media
Right.
company in Phoenix, one of the biggest in the world. People would, I could connect, I could pick up the phone and go, hey, dude. And people go, dude, because they wanted to, it's like, how can I get connected to iHeart, whatever their business might be?
Right. So the small world with this, right? The guy that I connected Mark with to buy his house when he was selling it to buy the house I helped him buy is a really good friend of mine who started a networking group in the Phoenix area, which I actually bugged him a year prior to do something like that. And then we just kind of never reconnected. And all of a sudden I see Valley Connections coming. I'm like, dude, like we talked about this a year ago. And now Mark, I've watched Mark actually grow with that and actually help people from that group as far as podcasting and things like that. So that shows you how closely knit this world really is, because our mutual friend I've known, 15 years. And we trust him so much. He handles my trust. If Nikki and I
Former
die,
Phoenix cop, too.
right,
And
right,
an Army
Nick-
vet.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, we had him on the show, Mike Torsten.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Torsten Colson, yeah.
Great
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Look him
So
up.
it's
Fabulous
just,
guy.
That's just kind of how this world works. It's
That's
just-
why I joined the networking group, because it was him, because I didn't need to.
Right.
And I said, dude, I don't need networking. We started talking.
Yes.
He goes, no, you have information that could probably be
Yes.
helpful to the people there. I go, well, okay, if they want to listen. So I go to networking groups and talk about messaging and,
Right.
and
See, and-
branding and
yeah.
that sort of thing. It's like, are you
Right.
serious about your brand? Most people aren't serious. You guys know this. Most people yap. Oh, I want to have my own brand. It's like, look, I come from a world that's put up or shut up.
Yeah.
You
That's
know how
what
many
you and
people
I
wanted
were-
to be. Yeah.
That's what you and I were talking about before, when Chris was getting ready to hit record. That was part of my vision in starting this podcast, was being able to meet interesting people like yourself who basically achieved their dream as a young man, did what they love for their entire life. I think that's so cool. But then Chris and I get torn between him and I like to talk about things that we like to talk about amongst ourselves too. We found that we have this connection that got rekindled that we had not forgotten about, but you kind of, you get away from it for so long that when you get back to it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember hanging out with this guy.
Yeah.
It's
well,
a lot
and
of
it's
fun.
but it's the same with that's, and again, not to keep giving you accolades, Mark, but that's the cool thing about Mark. Like, I've met enough people in my time when I was on iHeart and different disc jockeys and stuff, and just the different things I've done in my real estate career. Mark is a genuine human.
Yes.
There's people in that industry that aren't genuine. Like Neanderthal is a genuine human being. Like, I got to become friends with him. There's genuine people in that industry where a lot of people think you can't touch them. Oh, it's, he's narcissistic and arrogant. They're really not. They're just normal, everyday people like us. That's just their job. And because it's a fun job, and it's, but it's still just a job.
Well, I
It's just-
think
it's just
knowing
how they
that
do it.
now,
Yeah.
that was the key to yours and, every person that Chris just named, that was the key to their success, is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You really were that guy. That voice that we heard that told us what the weather was, the traffic was, that seemed like they were happy and doing what they love. A lot of times in the back of your mind, it's like, yep, that's what he gets paid for. But now to know you and to talk to you and to know Chris, who really knows you, you are that person. And I think that lent to your success in that business.
Well, I appreciate it. With one qualification. Okay, so I did mention I was on the radio. I did a traffic report at 6:01 a.m. every day for 40 years.
Yeah.
There was times when I didn't go to sleep the night before because I'd be at some friggin' concert or whatever, doing stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing. And so when you said,
all
is he
been
having
there.
a good time? Most of the time I was having a good time. But what I could always do was, this is going to sound weird, but I can always turn Mark Jeffrey on when I need to.
No, but I can turn the real
You know what I
estate
mean?
on
It's
when-
like,
yeah,
and
no,
you guys are
yeah,
the same. It's like, it's like, whoa, I feel like crap. I'm in the plane. I really wish I wasn't bouncing around right now because it's not the place I want to be. But anyway, hey, here I am. Good morning, guys. Glad to be with you and talk about US 60 being backed up near rural or whatever.
There's gigs I did not want to do as a musician. Everybody has those days. It's like, I'm not sure I want to be blasted by Mach 10 level volume right now, but here we go.
And then, exactly.
Hey, well, you
So-
only had to turn up because the drums were so loud, and then the bass got to turn up, and so does the lead singer, and that means you got to turn up again, and then the keyboard, and I can't hear myself, and it's this thing we've all been through it as musicians that everybody cranks it up just a little bit more as the set continues.
And the blessing that we had is that's one thing Chris and I, we talk about ad nauseum, is the four of us were four of the most respectful people towards the other person. It was almost the opposite. There were times when our sound man had to tell me to turn up, and I was like, okay, if you insist.
Yeah. So for those of you that are just joining us, this is Mark Jeffrey, retired, traffic.
Oh, I'm not
everywhere.
retired.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, I walked away from it.
Walked away from radio, but he still does things. So
It's like the mafia. They drug him back in.
right. But what
Well,
I want
and some of it is like, I'll say it this way, Chris, you're absolutely right. Like, and I can guess this about you two guys. You won't retire. I stopped being in charge of corporate news and traffic and weather stuff for one of the largest media companies in the world because it was a 24/7, 365 operation. I had 80 employees in 9 cities. That's why I sound mental. I still haven't recovered from that world where I'm always looking at my friggin' phone because it was my responsibility to make sure a weather report got to Albuquerque at 3 a.m. every morning. Do you know what it's like when it doesn't get there? And Albuquerque's not on our time. So what I said publicly was, hey, I did my last traffic report. I walked away from iHeart.
Right.
Now I'm doing what I want, just not as busy. And
which is
so,
good.
Anyway, just to qualify
So
that.
so thank you for that. So what I want to talk about now, for those of you watching us, you see behind Mark is a bunch of beer cans.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the fun things about helping him buy a house, and I started seeing all the things that he was bringing with him. His wife is very much into macabre, which is cool. But I want to talk about the beer can collection you have behind you.
Sure.
How many beer cans do you have? What's the most unique beer can you have?
Well,
and
while you set this up, I'm going to get my favorite one.
So
I think you asked the right question, brother.
I did,
I've
because
been wondering the whole episode myself.
Because
so
they're
thank you
slightly off camera.
Yeah, but this is like one of his passions, which is
So-
really cool.
He got so excited.
Yeah, he did. He's
Oh, dude, dude.
Christmas morning, really?
I don't think you guys know this. I am a member of the Beer Can Collectors of America.
Oh no, I know that.
I'm a
Thank
member
you
in
for
good
letting us
standing.
know.
I'm the secretary of the Arizona branch of said organization. I don't want to brag or nothing. I've had a lot of accolades in my life. But when I was nominated and then voted in as secretary of the A1 chapter of the Beer Can Collectors of America, it was a special moment for me, I have to say. So
That's awesome.
to answer your question, I have about 1,000 beer cans. It started because we moved around a lot when we were kids. And so,
1,000 unique ones?
yeah, 1,000 different beer cans.
1,000. 1,000.
Wow.
100. Yeah, they're in the walls all surrounding me here. I'll have you over and show them to you in person sometime. So about 12 years old, lived in Pittsburgh. And my buddy and I did a lot of walking the back roads. And at the time, Iron City Beer, Pittsburgh Brewing, made a whole bunch of different cans. They started with making cans of all the Pittsburgh Steeler teams, pictures, Pittsburgh Pirates, Pittsburgh Penguins. My dad used to do play-by-play for the Pittsburgh Penguins for a couple of years.
Oh, right on.
We were Pittsburgh.
That's so cool.
Dude, I can go on that topic happily someday. Where the most amazing thing my dad ever did was sitting next to him in the booth while he's doing hockey radio for the NHL. My gosh, you think I talk fast?
Really?
That's where I learned it. It was just with Canadian friggin' French names and stuff, dude.
Oh,
I mean,
didn't think
it's
of
not
that.
that, dude. It was just insanity. So that's where I got a little of my spazziness from, I'm sure. So anyway, used to walk the back roads, started collecting those cans in real time. And then we moved around a bunch. Parents got divorced and stuff like that. I went to 3 high schools in 3 states, spent a lot of time by myself because, you move to a new high school in a new state, you have no friends. And I would just do walking around, just walk the back roads. And that was when people would pollute. They just throw shit out the window, right? Before, and then we saw the Indian crying on TV because we're all bad people. And I don't know if you remember that. Look it up sometime.
totally
the
remember
crying
that, man.
Indian against pollution.
We're all the same age, man.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I started collecting the cans, and it grew and grew and grew. I've got about 1,000 cans now. I'll show you. This is the oldest beer can in the world. So beer was first put in cans, and it's Kruger Cream Ale.
Right
In
on.
1935, beer was first put in cans. They couldn't put it in cans any sooner because they didn't have something called keg lining. They needed a lining because this is steel, okay?
Okay.
This isn't aluminum. This is actual steel. Every time, so the can companies thought, how are we going to expand our business? I know, we'll put beverages in our cans. They had food and all that. But the beer people goes, this tastes like garbage. You're ruined. Budweiser goes, we're not putting our beer in there.
Yeah.
Keg lining came, 1935, it's perfected. Beer starts being put in cans like this. And so this is the first one. This came out in February of 1935. This is one of my Holy Grail cans. My wife got it for me for a birthday present. It didn't cost as much then, but now it's worth more than my car.
So is it empty
That's
or is there beer
crazy.
in it?
Okay. So this is called factory sealed. So
Okay.
this came from the actual factory they would use for
Okay.
demos.
Okay.
But you used to have an opener. You needed
Yeah.
an opener for beer cans until 1962.
When they had
Okay,
when they did the
that's
pull
when they
tab.
invented the ring pull.
Right.
Right,
Right.
ring
Okay.
pull, punch tab, 1962. So my collection is focused on prior to 1962. I collect cans you need an opener for. Here's the first Budweiser can from 1936.
Wow.
That's what it looked like back then.
And for
Hold
an
that a
opener,
little closer, Mark.
Yeah. And
Please.
for an opener, you're talking about like just a basic
That's
can opener,
awesome.
like you poke the hole in it.
Yeah, you need what was called a church key.
Okay.
That's
And-
awesome.
And so, years and years, I was collecting cans, get them from all kinds of weird places. It's odd because I'm not much of a beer drinker.
Yeah.
I'll drink beer, but it's just not much of my
not your
thing.
thing.
Everybody
Yeah,
thinks
yeah.
when they see Mark, a beer can, like, you really like hammering them. It's like, no, A, no. B, most of the cans are prior to 1962. So
What year
see,
is the
that-
Budweiser from?
1936.
Yeah. See, I didn't know they were pre 1962. I knew you had a beer can
1936.
collection because you've shown them on Facebook and stuff. We've talked about it, but
Wait,
I
I
didn't
gotta
know
get
it was
a couple
all
other
pre.
cool ones. You
Okay.
gotta let me do this.
Okay. This is Mark Jeffrey from iHeartRadio fame.
love this
he's
guy,
a traffic
dude.
guy, and he's got a beer can collection that is outstanding. So I poked the
Also
bear.
going back to the day, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys made jokes while I was away from
We
the
did not make
headset.
jokes.
Yes, you
We
did.
did not. No, this is awesome.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an Iron City can
Okay. Oh, like you found when you were walking the streets.
from
Okay.
1935.
Cool.
And you'd be asking, why is it shaped like this? Little beer can
Like an
history.
oil can.
Yeah.
Exactly. So some of the old cans are shaped like this. Why? Because the can companies, American Can Company, Continental Can Company, they were smart marketers. They said,
Yeah.
we need to expand our brand. So they would go to each brewery and go, put your beer in cans. And we go, we don't want to, dude. They go, all right, what if
Yeah.
we give you 1 million cans at half cost to start
Wow.
with?
Wow.
And they go, well, okay. Just,
Yeah.
because the can companies were smart. Can companies went to Iron City in Pittsburgh. Iron City said, dudes, we just put in our own bottling machines. And so American Can Company said, what if we give you cans shaped like bottles?
That's cool.
And they said, okay. So this one's from 1935. This is one of my holy grails too, because
Right
I'm
on.
from Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and my wife got this for me as well. So she
That's
knows.
really
Way to go,
cool.
Jackie.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like, what did your wife get you for birthday? A beer can. Look.
From 1936.
For 1936.
That's awesome.
I know. So everybody's got, and then anyway, I've been doing it ever since. It's one of my favorite things to do. And these walls around me are surrounded with old beer cans that I'll show you sometime.
Yeah. So we got about 10 minutes left because Mark is, he's.
Oh, I got some time now. I can probably go till, another half hour if you like.
That's up
But
to you.
only as long as it's interesting to you.
Yeah.
Oh, this is completely interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
I love
So-
people that collect stuff like that. And it's like Chris said, it's neat. He didn't know that your collection was pre 1962.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Hard to find, dudes. I mean,
Yeah.
we find them in walls. I had a buddy, true story, one of my best friends back from Connecticut. We still communicate through text every day. He was redoing his bathroom in Connecticut, and the house was from the 20s. He tore down a wall and 3 beer cans fell out.
Oh, from the
And he-
contractors.
He said that's where we find them now, because contractors will drink and just put them in the walls to kind of hide the fact that if you're a guy putting in insulation up there, or if you're a plumber or whatever. So that's how we find a lot of old beer cans. Also out here in Arizona, especially when I got buddies who go mining or they spelunking, they like looking in caves and mines and such. And one of the reasons why you'll see beer cans all over my branding is because I want people to know, like Chris. Chris knows I collect beer cans, and now Mike, you do too. So now you're going to be somewhere in Prescott, you're going to be in an antique store, and you're going to take a picture and go, Mark, do you have this one? And I'll go, no, dude, ask him how much. And so, because I'm so loud about it.
I've actually come across beer cans and thought about that. Now I know
Yeah.
that I can take a picture and ask you.
Yes, because I've got price books right behind me, because our club has price books. Do not laugh. We just set a record for $65,000 a beer can sold for weekend before last. On
We're laughing with you, brother, because we have the same obsessions, just differently, right?
Yeah. See, I've collected every bobblehead from The Office.
Oh, nice.
Okay. From every single and it
The
was
TV
hardest-
show The Office.
Correct. And it took me about 2 years because Stanley and Meredith was almost impossible to find.
Really?
Yeah. They're boxed up right now, but I actually have every single.
There still aren't now. Do you leave them in the package?
No, I opened up the package,
okay.
but the boxes are still pristine, you know, and so they're still top quality and, you know, that kind of jazz.
But do you have the Bob Ross bobblehead?
I don't have the Bob Ross bobble. No.
Yes.
Mike
You mean
has the
Bob Ross, the painter?
Yeah.
I
Damn
love
straight.
Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Damn straight, brother.
Dude,
got the
Bob,
Bob
Ross.
Ross is the man.
Right?
He's the reason why I thought, you know, if I wanted to paint, he makes it look so friggin' easy.
He does.
Right.
And he
It's
has
so
such a good
relaxing.
time
He's the
doing
most,
it.
dude.
Yeah.
He's the most relaxed communicator. That blows me away because I'm a fan of Bob Ross for a lot of reasons, not only the painting, but because I'm into presentations and things like that. I talk to people all the time.
That's why
about,
we all loved him.
yeah,
Right.
what's your branding, dude? And it's like he had his branding down. They might have laughed at it. Time. We're still talking about the guy, and he's gone all this
He
time,
got to be high as a kite and do what he loved every week.
dude. And he was good at it, you know.
Damn right he was.
Right.
And you felt like we were his friends. Like if we went in the studio, you'd go, "Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Can I watch it?" You go, "Sure."
We're
Probably.
gonna
He
do
was
some
just that
happy
kind
little
of guy.
trees.
We need
Yeah.
some happy
There's
trees.
a happy little accidents. That's okay.
Yeah, there are.
Where I'd be
yeah,
like,
there's-
I'd mess it up and go, "Oh, damn it!"
Right.
But he goes,
There's no
"It's okay,
mistakes.
Mark. Look, we'll just make it a tree.
just happy
Yeah.
accidents.
Happy accidents."
Right. So you talked about, what's the name of your cover band?
Oh, I've been in a bunch. 50-50 was the one I was in the longest time. I came up with that because 50-50 chance we'd be any good, that we'd be sober. 50-50 we'd show up on time. It was just play on words. The current band, we call it Cover Story.
Right.
Because
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Yeah, it says that's what we are.
Yeah.
We haven't played for about a year. Jim Sharp, morning guy, KTR Radio here is our lead singer.
Right.
And so we, you know, to be honest with you guys, because I don't care, we just play charities and stuff like that. We raise money for veterans things. So
Yeah.
I don't play out because we've all done that where you play a whole gig and you end up with $22 because the band drank the rest of the money. And
Or
it's like,
worse
I'm
yet,
not a
you
money
owe the
whore.
bar
But
money.
yeah. We had a singer in our band 50-50 who would always buy rounds for like the first front rows. And I'd be sitting there going, F, dude, I'm not doing this for cash. I'm doing this for fun. But come on. I remember one time I got $7 after we played all night. And I was supposed to get 150. But it's like, well, but, you know, we're trying to, you know, get the band, you know, the people behind us and they'll come to the next gig. And so anyway, we've all been through that.
So here's a true story. When we were in Nemesis, one of the things that I came up with after we come on stage, we bust through 3 songs that were kind of just in your face. Free Man was one of the ones that you heard that we would open with usually. So by the 3rd song, the crowd's, you know, either's in love with us or they're like, what the fuck is this? My ears are blowing out. Not, you know. So I would introduce us and chat a little bit, but then I'd say, who wants a free beer? So the first time I did it, nobody said anything. So I stepped away from the mic. I'm like, fucking kidding me? I'm like, who wants a free beer? And then still nobody. So I was like, all right, look, I'm going to ask who wants a free beer. And all you people out there are going to scream as loud as you can. And the loudest person is going to get a free pitcher of beer on me. That's as simple
Actually,
as it
he
is.
said the loudest motherfucker
Well,
in
yeah,
here is going to
yeah.
get a free pitcher of
Right.
beer.
You have to swear in the bar. Go ahead,
Right.
Chris.
So 3rd time, you know, I get enough people screaming, I just randomly point. So then I started buying pitchers of beer. Right. And so I prepay at the beginning of the show. And then eventually I think it was Mason Jar that shut that down. So I stopped doing it completely because then they're like, dude, you can't buy it. Because we did 18 and over shows. So it was a question of, am I giving free beer to an 18-year-old or 21-year-old? So I kind of got the kibosh on that. But it was something I did just to kind of get the crowd to interact. And then it's something that, you know, back then we had to sell tickets like we talked about before, right? You had to sell tickets, you know.
It definitely became part of our stick. People, like you talked about branding. People knew that when they came to our show that not only were they potentially going to get a T-shirt, a sticker, you know, free alcohol, whatever. They knew they were going to have a good time, most importantly, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the potential that you might get something. That became part of our stick for sure.
Right. Which is, you know, you got to do something, right?
Dude,
Yeah.
and I know we all did it for the same reason. You know, there's 2 gigs in particular I remember is we opened up for Rat in Scottsdale, and that's
That's
why I was
awesome.
saying this is effing
One of my
cool.
favorites,
The
dude.
Rat- I know. I was like, we got this opportunity. You want to open for Rat? And I was like, shit, yeah.
I saw them on the City to City tour when Way Cool Jr. came out.
Dude,
You
they
talk
were-
about perfection.
I know.
At that time, this was 1988 probably.
Yeah.
They were on top of their game, man. Warren DeMartini does not get enough love.
I know. Absolutely right. And I remember sitting there, so we're carousing with them backstage. And then I'm watching it. So we did our set, and a couple of them kind of watched us a little bit. And then I'm sitting right there watching. And then the other one was when we opened up for Bon Jovi out at Desert Sky Pavilion.
Right on.
I should stop the story
What year
there.
was that?
Oh, shit. To 2000-ish, somewhere right around in there. He was the headliner. I shouldn't stop the story
I
there.
might have
but-
been at that show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, the reason why you might not remember me, Mike, because I will tell too much of this story. I should just stop.
I know I
But-
was at that show.
Just tell the story, Mark.
All right. There was about 15 bands. We were the 3 p.m. band, and there was only about 30 people. So when we were done with our set, it was daytime. He was the 8:30 band. And so when
I
you
was
saw
not
the
at
poster,
your show.
yeah,
I was at
so
their show.
it said Bon Jovi really big, and then each successive band's name got
Right.
smaller. Sure. And so it's like we were. There we are. So we were literally, dude, we were on the cavernous stage. So when we would finish a song,
That's so cool though that you played there.
you'd hear like 11 people. 2 of them are wives, you know?
Sure.
But anyway, so a lot of times I'll tell this story just to poke people. It's like, yeah, we opened for Bon Jovi. And I know I should just leave it there and go,
Well,
don't
but
want to
that's
brag,
okay.
but we,
Mike dropped the band that like I didn't when we opened for this band, I don't want to sound stupid, but I didn't care. And now being who I am and the age I am and how my love for music has just grown immensely, you know who I'm talking about, Mike, right?
Yeah, the Marshall Tucker Band.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
we
love
opened
them.
for them. Like fucking serious?
I didn't have the same appreciation either.
No,
I'm
not
not
at
going to say
all.
that I did. We were 20.
Yeah,
I was
Troy
22
Caldwell.
years old,
Right.
maybe.
Oh, fucking yeah.
those
I mean,
guys could play anything.
Oh, they were-
chose country, but they could play anything.
Right, and see the benefit of Nemesis, we could play with anyone
Yes.
because we were that dynamic in our songs.
We opened from
that
everybody from the
Yeah.
Marshall Tucker Band to Sacred Reich.
Enough's enough. Tony
like
McAlpine.
Sacred
I mean,
Reich,
just,
I partied with Enough's Enough on their bus.
shit.
I just
Enough's
told that
Enough.
story the other day. That was the most cocaine I had ever seen in one sitting. It's like they opened up a kilo and threw it on the table.
Dude.
Yeah.
I hear you. I did some of that shit myself. That's,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Pat Travers, he was a fun one.
Oh,
we
yeah, I love
opened
Pat
for.
Travers.
Tony
Yeah.
McAlpine,
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
L.A. Guns, Seven Dust.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
all the big '80s bands that stopped playing arenas because grunge took over.
Yeah.
They would find their way through Mason Jar. You remember the Electric Ballroom? That's where we did a lot of shows, like the Ballroom, Hollywood Alley.
Yep.
I met Chris at the Electric Ballroom at a Candlebox show.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, shit. I like
Yeah.
Candlebox. Yeah, yeah.
I was singing along with
Right
Kevin
behind
Martin.
my head.
Right, and so Mike kept turning around, looking at me, and I was getting the look like, "Who's this motherfucker? Why is she fucking singing in the back of me?" Right, and then half the stage power goes out. Right, so then the house.
No,
starts
the
coming
power
on.
to the whole place went
Okay,
out.
yeah,
We were
yeah.
standing in the dark.
Yeah, and then he turns around with a business card. Are you a singer? I'm like, maybe. And there you go.
My horror story was I started that band, Mark, and the guy that we started the band with was also our bass player. And our first gig was at the ballroom on the main stage because I knew the guy that ran sound there. So it's always who you know, right? Networking.
Yep, yep.
And about 10 minutes before showtime, my drummer comes over and says, "We got a fucking problem." And I said, "What's that? You know, did you forget your drumsticks or something?" Just trying to make a joke, you know? And he's like, "No, man, you better go check out." His name was also Mike. And I walk over there, and it was deer in the headlights, man. I put my hand in front of his eyes, and he was just stage fright like I had never seen.
Ah, damn.
And, you know, being discretion is the better part of valor, my drummer was like, "That can never happen again. I just can't." You know, you can overlook a lot of things, but you can't wonder about the guys you're going to walk on that stage with every night because it's intimidating for everyone on some level. You can't worry about the other guys. So that's how I ended up looking for Chris. And I figured if the guy was brazen enough to sing at the top of his lungs along with the band that he came to see, then he's probably not afraid to go out there and do that in front of anybody, right?
Yeah.
And
No, that's a great example.
Yeah,
history proved right.
yeah.
I was good at spotting talent. I wasn't the most talented guitar player, but I knew what I liked to hear, and I knew what talent was. You either have it or you don't. You know, it's one of those things that it sounds harsh, but you got to be honest with people because you can't put yourself in a position where you're going to suck.
No,
Right.
Mike, and you're right. And one of the things that, again, getting back to my position in radio, where I was like an offensive lineman on a football team, I same way for bands. I've said it over and over. The people have said, "Oh, Mark, you got to play in bands," and go, "Look, I didn't let lack of talent stop me from getting up there. Was
Yep.
I the best keyboard player ever? No, not by a long shot, dude."
I always cite myself as the least talented person in the band. That may or may not be true, but that's how I looked at it, and that's how I, either got better or at least remained
But you're not going to
humble.
let it stop you from, but I'm going to go up there anyway, and I'm going to
Hell
have a
no.
blast,
Right,
and people are going to
right.
think what they're going to think.
Right,
I
and
do
it
remember one time we were playing at the Joe's Grotto,
Oh yeah.
and we would start with Mr. Crowley, and
Oh,
that
right
starts.
on.
That's my thing. That was the keyboards, and we were going to do that. Da, 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 da. Really wicked. To Don Airy played it originally. Anyway, I'm going to start with that. But just before it, the guy blew the fog everywhere.
Yeah.
So. And then they turn the lights on, and fog with lights on them. It's like, I can't see my keys. I was like, and my guys are going, go, Mark, go. They're looking at me. I'm going, I can't see, dude. I can't. I have to hit my switch because I
Like
had
Spinal Tap?
Yeah, dude, it was just like Spinal Tap. Which, by the way, they've got a new movie coming out. Can't wait
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah.
It better
Can't
be
wait to see
good.
it. But
What do
yes,
they
I'm sure
call-
someday we'll have to do another one of these, and we'll talk about our Spinal Tap moments because I did them all.
That's awesome, man. And we have too. Here's a good one. My guitar got stolen. I was working at a printing company, and the guy comes in. He's like, "Man, you left your back window down. It's raining outside." And he said, "Your wallet. You left your wallet in there, and I can't believe it's still there." And I said, "My wallet's still there because my guitar's gone. I didn't even have to go look. My guitar was also in the back seat." And it was. So long story short, I bought one. It had a floating tremolo on it. And I was always used to having multiple instruments. So I had 2 guitars minimum at all times. Now I only have one. We're in the middle of playing a song. I go to play the solo, string breaks. I'm not even thinking as a player. The tension of a floating tremolo also keeps the tuning, right? So now my guitar is completely out of tune. We're right in the middle of the song. I don't have another instrument. So I jump back behind my rig, and start changing my string. And these guys, they troopered on for, it took a while. You know how long it takes to change a guitar string, especially when you're under pressure. They never missed anything. Chris
Half
kept
in
the
the dark,
crowd
yeah.
engaged, and it was awesome. That was the level of professionalism that I understood in my own mind at that moment in time, how great these guys really were. I was like, man, you never know till you're there. Are they, are the other members going to fold?
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
go ahead.
I was going to say, we did a gig once at the Hard Rock Cafe when it was on Camelback here in Phoenix, Camelback Road, 24th Street. And we were opening up for Kiss Army, the actually officially sanctioned Kiss Army.
Right.
Good guys, talented musicians. But while we're playing, so the bass player who was next to me, something happened to his bass amp and he's looking at me, I got nothing. So he's going, take it. So I switched my bottom keys to the bass sound. And so I had to play his bass I keep looking at him like, dude, are you going to take this shit back over? Because I got my own shit to worry about. Yeah. But that's where I met my wife too, at that gig.
That's
Let's-
awesome.
Let's touch on Jackie, because Jackie's a cool human. So she's very into macabre.
My wife is a Universal Monster fan. She likes old bloody makeup effects, not the new super gory stuff, but Frankenstein, Dracula,
So cool.
Creature. So she's got a large collection of all kinds of. We have life-size Frankensteins, and creatures from the Black Lagoon, and so on and so forth.
I love
and
all
also,
that old stuff too.
Right?
So she likes the old school, and that's why we got along. Because when I met her, she was hesitant to let me come into her apartment, probably for various reasons. But one of them was because she did, on the side, she does bloody makeup special effects. Did a bunch of independent movies and stuff where she would put blood on your face. So we have, in the other room next to me here, we have fake limbs, fake arm, fake legs. We have, mask prosthetics that you can put on and paint on, make it look like, somebody's been injured and that sort of stuff.
She drops some of her stuff on Facebook every now and then, and because I was in theater, and I when I got into acting, I was like, okay, I'm going to do all the things. So I know how to run lights, I know how to run sound, I know how to do the theatrical stage makeup, which is different than just regular makeup. So I, been there, done all that stuff. So whenever she drops something every now and then with her makeup stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, it takes me back. Like, I remember that. I remember doing that. And these things, like you had to make bloody scars, and we had this one thing one time where we had to use something that's not normally used for makeup. And if you remember the movie Hellraiser and Pinhead, which
I
I
do.
know we both do.
Oh, Pinhead, yep.
So I took toothpicks and cut them in half, and I drew the outline on my head, because my head was shaved by then, and used rigid collodion to glue all the toothpicks on my head, like all the way around with the makeup and the bloody, and I made my eyes kind of bloody, and then I had a blood capsule because we had to take pictures of it to be graded on. So I was doing this, like just
So your
blood
normal
dripping.
look. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Blood dripping out. But those are the kind of cool things that you don't think about. And then when Jackie posts that kind of stuff, oh, yeah, I remember doing those things. 'Cause
Yeah.
Well, that's
parts of
another
life.
good story. At that moment in time, when he shaved his head, which was completely socially unacceptable at the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He went from having hair at one band practice and the next band practice, this fucker just shows up all casual, like, "Hey, you guys ready to go?" And he
Hey,
got no
I'm
hair,
Rob
you
Halford.
know? But
So
that
Rob
was
Howard
another,
wasn't shaving his head yet.
he wasn't. Rob Halford
No.
still was
okay.
trying to hang on
No.
to the remnants
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the once great civilization, as George Costanza would say.
That's right.
Yeah, that was another thing that people really keyed in on at the time because that was a striking look, you know?
Yeah, nobody was done. And the funny part about that is I had a roommate, a black roommate, who was very much into Louis Farrakhan, right? And had, right. So we would go places, and I had a big lifted 1992 Ford F-150 XLT blue truck with an American flag and an Arizona flag on the window. So he and I would get in that thing and go places. I remember going to Fiesta Mall when it was still here, and we're walking through the mall. And so I'm ignorant, right? Because I'm a skinhead looking guy now. I have a black and red checkered flannel on and Doc Martens with blue jeans. Courtney's next to me with the Farrakhan turbine hat thing and like some shroud thing, and we're casually walking through the mall. So we would go into the corner of one store, and I started noticing people would go out the other side of that store because what the fuck is this? Like, how is this dynamic and how does it work? So,
Well, that was another Spinal Tap moment for us because
Yeah.
right after you did that, we got booked with the skinhead lineup. Not just one skinhead band.
did, yeah.
We were the only like non-skinhead band on the whole lineup. And
Mm-hmm.
if it had not been for him being a big dude and my drummer being crazy, we probably would have got our ass kicked.
Yeah.
Because that was the night that I learned those people hate everybody, not just black people.
That's
Everybody.
right. They're
They hate
aggressive.
everybody that's not like them.
Yep,
Right.
they're very
and that-
aggressive.
and again, it was the reason behind it, Mark, is my bald cap rip and dress rehearsal. And back then there was no Amazon, so it's like, okay, Chris, we got 2 weeks to get the bald cap because they come from New York, or you just do it with hair. And I was playing this butler in a play called Beau Jest, and it was this weird little, I don't know, character that the director had me develop. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just shave my head. It's just hair. I'll grow it back. And it just took because I have the perfect head for being bald, and there you go.
I always
And
cite that as an example of how committed this guy is to whatever role he's playing in life. It doesn't
Well-
matter what he's doing, but hey, whatever needs to be done, I'm going to do.
Right. Well, and the fun thing too, when the review came out after the opening night, I had a whole paragraph, and I just literally had 2 lines. I came out on the stage, and I said this in this weird voice, "Mr. Undershaft, they're here waiting for you," and then I walked back off the stage. But that look and that delivery and how my walk was, because I kind of did a weird little penguin walk. That was a paragraph worth in the review, which I was like, okay, that's cool. And character
Nice,
acting
dude.
by Chris Dunham stood out as a memorable scene, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, right
Well,
on.
isn't that fun? That we've all done accomplished things, but we'll pull out these little weird moments. Like,
Yes.
that's how I am. I know I did this and that, but I was kidding. But then they elected me to be an officer in the spear can collecting
That's
club.
awesome, dude.
Exactly,
So,
You know?
so
It's
how
like, I
many,
know I was on the radio, but it was really cool. I've got these really weird people are going, you're nuts, dude.
That's
So
what
how-
makes you
so-
a genuine human being, in my opinion.
exactly. So how many people are in the Arizona Beer Can Collecting Club?
We have about 100 here, 150 maybe. In Arizona, there's about 35,000 of us nationwide.
Wow.
But it's think of it more as breweryana. So one of my best friends, he collects openers, only
Okay.
openers. And there's
Oh.
maybe 500 different openers.
Okay.
I've got another good buddy who has a giant warehouse, and he's got about 200 neon beer signs, full size from bars.
No shit.
Like, you know how when you walk in a bar and there's always neon beer
yeah,
signs?
sure. Yeah.
That's what he collects. He's only got a few cans. My thing is cans.
Oh, so
and
it's a
bunch of-
so it's a brewery thing, like you just said.
brewery
it's all
thing, yep.
encompassing. So it's not just beer; it's everything.
I got
that
a
has to
buddy
do with
who
breweries. Okay.
created a map of the United States. It's bigger than I can show you on here,
Okay.
but it's probably maybe 4 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and it's a United States map, and it's made with beer caps.
Oh,
with each
right on.
beer cap is from the state or right in that proximity.
Oh,
so when
that's
you look at
cool.
it, you go,
That
"Oh
is
no
cool.
shit!" There's Rolling Rock from right in the middle of Pennsylvania,
Right
and so
on.
some of us we're all crazy in our different ways. He also happens to be our bass player,
There
which
you
is
go.
why we were talking at the beer can thing, and he goes, "Hey, Mark, you're a musician, aren't you?" I go, "Yeah." I stab at the keys. I don't know if I qualify as a musician, but I don't let lack of talent stop me from getting up on stage. And he said, I play bass. And so anyway, he joined our band.
There you go.
So have you ever like experimented with writing your own songs as a musician?
I did. Terrible at lyrics.
Me too. That's why
Pretty
I love
good
the
at
chat.
writing song parts because I was a keyboard player. And I'll say it to you this way, Mike. The advantage I had as a keyboard player, I have Alesis products. I have an Alesis QS6,
Love 'em.
Alesis QS8. Love
The
those.
Quadriverb was my friend. for a
Quadriverb,
lot of
yes.
years.
I've got a Quadriverb as well. Well, then the sounds that are built in there, you could play a couple of notes and going on whatever sound you've picked and go, dang, I hear something. So that's how I would come up with parts and then present them to the guys. A bunch of original songs back when the internet was just starting to be a thing. One of the things I have hanging up on my band room wall is a check written out to me for 27 cents because I got paid because somebody bought my song on the internet.
I love it.
I still haven't cashed and probably couldn't, but it's from way back when the internet started because I put it up on
love
one
it.
of those sites and somebody downloaded
awesome.
it. And I know I got this 27-cent check in the mail. I was like, F yeah. That's what I say. It's like, yeah, I did this and met presidents and did shit like that and opened up for Bon Jovi. But look, I got 27 cents for a song that I put up on the internet.
Well, that's kind of cool to be on like the last band I was in. We're on all the iTunes and whatever. But it's kind of cool because not many people can say, hey.
That's
Damn
right.
right it is.
So,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all in a rarefied group in that we've all been published artists at one time in our lives.
Right, which is fun, It's,
Well, that's why we could say to people what we talked at the beginning here, how I consult podcasters. And I run into them all the time, several a day. Usually I've got some meetings lined up later. And usually it's like, I'll go, okay, what are you talking about here, dude? Is this your hobby or are you going to brand yourself? Because if you got a hobby, then I'll tell you, you know what? Just do a Zoom call with your friend, put it up on YouTube. Boom, you got a podcast, all right?
Yep,
if you're going to rebrand yourself, if this is going to become you, then we can talk and we'll start to kind of dial in. It's like, who's your support team? What are you going to do about show prep? Who's your target audience? And we start going through all those questions.
You're talking
do
to
all
my
that.
support team.
Yeah, he does do all that because when I went and visited Mark at what's it called again? The Worldwide Studios?
Star Worldwide Studios.
Star Worldwide Studios. When I went, he invited me down to take a look and stuff, which was really cool. Met some people that were there.
Yeah, Mike, you got to come by too, dude. It's cool.
He
It's in
lives,
Scottsdale.
he lives in Pontiac, Illinois. That's our problem.
Oh, no shit. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm 1,800 miles away, but
Oh, no,
I will
okay.
definitely come out there and visit at some point.
Well,
I'm
next
sure.
time you come out here, it's like,
Yeah,
well, I'll get
yeah.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a deal.
So, but yeah, so he does. He's just because even though he knew that, okay, Chris might be into this, like he ran down the gamut, man. He's like, just drilled me. I was like, why? Right on. But that's cool because he's passionate. That's what you want. You're
Well,
passionate
because
about
Mike,
what
because
you
you know
do.
a lot of people, it's like, yeah, I want to. It would be like on radio. Mark, I want to be on the radio. It's like, do you? Do you really? I'll talk to you. Okay. The first thing I want you to do is going forward, I want you to read everything out loud. When you're alone or when you're with people, when you read anything, read it out loud. Get good at that. Get used to the sound of your own voice, to know how much breath you have, to learn how to read ahead. Sometimes and then will the people do it? I don't know. So I first thing I try to do is, depending on who it is, an example. So I can't tell you how many people would come into my Phoenix office applying to be a traffic reporter because I would
Right.
always be looking for new people. And depending on their attitude, the ones that with an attitude that would sit down like they thought they're pretty special, I would go, all right, we're going to play a little game. You are live on the radio right now. 3, how do you get to your house? How do I get to your house from here? 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, right on.
That's
Because it's like, and they go,
Yeah.
well, wait, what do you mean? I go, dude, I said you were live, man. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try it
Yeah.
again. How do I get to your house from here? 3, 2, go. And I do that because there's a lot of correct answers. One would be, well, Mr. Jeffrey, I would get up from this chair. I would proceed through that door. I would go down the stairs. That's cool. Or you could go, well, I'd get in my car and jump on the 202 and go westbound. That's cool too. But it was be like, dude, can you be on the spot?
Yeah,
Go.
exactly.
Because
And
there's no such thing as
until we started doing this, I would kind of have an idea what you're talking about, but he's done it to me a few times where he's like, I got to go fill in this. I understand what you're talking about because when you're put on the spot like that, especially when you've been covering a subject, it's like, oh yeah, what are we going to talk about now? Oh, hey,
Well,
That was the
okay.
cool-
So what's your
yeah.
what's your guys' call to action in this podcast? Where are you sending people? What do you want them to do?
We are we talk about people, we talk about addiction, we talk about recovery. That's our center point. That's where we started the focus because I'm over 20 years sober. Mike has had his battles with substances as well. So we're both clean and sober from that aspect. So when we first started, it was more just having conversations with each other, kind of getting Mike comfortable with this because, again, this was totally out of his comfort zone. As we've grown in doing this, we've started to collect guests coming on the show, and it's all human nature stuff. So we had a gal on that talked about being kidnapped, 3 different times before the age of 21. That was horrific, and survival stuff like that. We had somebody who was on the show that actually smoked his first joint when he was 6 years old in San Francisco because his parents were hippies, right? And then we have people like you on that just have this fantastic life. I have somebody coming on next week that's a nurse, traveling nurse. She does a lot of stuff, a lot of good all over the world. It's not Team Rubicon, but it's the other group of traveling nurses that go to help recovery, hurricane stuff like that. So it's more of a human interest centered, but it all kind of circles back to just 2 really good friends who've known each other for a very long time, having conversations that are engaging, that real and raw and relevant to what's going on in the world, because we kind of cover everything, which is, well, when you came on, we started talking about it. You're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, we're just going to shoot from the hip because that's what we do. It's just conversation. It's learning from people and sharing stories. And kind of like when I did Good News Arizona, it's like, let's find some positive things to talk about to make your day that much better instead of focusing on the, the negative Nelly stuff.
I guess I would say going forward too, I would like to mix in what people like about when Chris and I do the show by ourselves with, trying to find a balance between that and having people like yourself on who have lived their dream, for lack of a better term, right? People I like where he said human interest. People like to hear somebody that is passionate about what they've done. You couldn't see it. Chris and I saw it. When he asked about your beer can collection, it was like somebody who collects model trains. You just asked them, hey, can you show me your new Lionel? Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter if they're 80 years old. They still get that little kid at Christmas look.
Yep. That's exactly what you
Those
had,
are
Mark.
the
It was
stories.
like,
Dude, you want to hear about beer cans? Try and
Those
stop
are the
me,
stories that I'm looking for sure.
Exactly.
I
Well,
think people like that.
Well, the reason I brought it up, Mike, is, and it's the programmer in me. It's like, and the podcast consultant is like, okay, cool. So then you're going to send them to your webpage or to your Instagram or your Facebook and go, I want to hear from you. Yep. I'd love to hear your stories. Tell us what you like about the show or what you'd like to feature. Maybe you have an idea for a guest. Hit me up at whatever.com, or so it's your call to action. So, Mike, your answer is when Chris would get up and say, kill 3 minutes, I'll be right back. Where you immediately go into your call to action, going, well, it's a good opportunity here to, Chris is away, to encourage you to drop us a note. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what's happened in your life, and we'd love to interact. So you can
That
find
makes me
on
feel
Facebook.
better because that's what I've been doing for sure. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
we're involved in quite a few podcast Facebook pages that have helped generate guests and things like that. Because again, there's some that'll be stuck in that box, right? If you're this type of person, we want you on the show, but we just open it up because again, at the end of the day, it's just two really good friends having conversations, and we're in 16 and 17 countries now. So we've
17, yeah.
So we've grown it organically. We're not out there paying placement and shit like that because it to me it means more when you grow things organically, word of mouth, and start getting a referral. Hey, let's go on this show, go on that show, and then the feedback and the reviews. We're at the point now where I'm going to start poking guests and stuff to review us. Like, Mark, when we get done, go to the Chris and Mike show on Facebook and give us a review.
There's your call to action. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
I know.
Call to action, which you should say 4 or 5 times during the show.
Sure.
But that's just me. That's
No,
just
and
that's
you're
the guy
right.
in me going, okay, you guys do a good job. I like that, but
Yeah,
I need more call to actions. Like you just revealed your passion. Okay, so don't be afraid to point out that passion and build that into a 20 or 30-second message where, hey, by the way, we want to hear from people that, to have some of the similar beliefs as us, and you can go here. Anyway, Mark, back to you.
Yeah.
Just work that shit in naturally and organically, 3-4 times during the show, because you don't know what, sometimes people stop and start your show and that sort of stuff. Don't be afraid to shamelessly promote what you're doing. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I don't do as good a job at that on this as I did when I was on Real Talk USA because it's the format's not sitting in front of me, and the way I used to do that and the way that, because I had to write every show, so I had all my breaks and, and this is such a free-roaming thing, but I'll make little sticky notes and remind myself that, hey.
Right. So you get 3x5 index cards, you write in Sharpie, and you have that stuff laying down in front of you. Because, Chris, you've been in radio stations before, and you'll see it. Every radio station I've ever been in has what you're supposed to say somewhere on the wall in the vision of the DJ. So we can go, it's hot hits, because, this week we're hot hits. Next week we're, the best hits.
Cool jazz.
Because you get a new program director going, I have an idea.
Welcome
You know,
to
I'm
the
the new
mountain.
program director. I can't leave things alone. I have to mess with it. Otherwise, they'll wonder why they hired me, and I'm going to screw everything up.
Yep. No, that's good advice. And you're, you know, it's nothing that I didn't know. You just need to smack me in the
That's
face
right,
like
dude.
that. So I appreciate that.
But you do a good
I
job,
think that's
man.
what I think that's what makes people like him valuable is, you know, you could be the most talented musician in the world and people say, why do you need a producer? That interaction between the three of us just proved why you need somebody like that, because you can have all the talent in the world. I'm in the same boat as you as a songwriter, Mark. I can come up with parts, millions of parts. I'm never ending for ideas. Putting them together was always my problem. That's where, you know, a drummer comes in for a guitar player or a keyboard player. You need somebody to arrange those thoughts in your head together, tie them together.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, boys and girls. Hey, this is the Chris and Mike Show. Thank you, Mark Jeff, for coming on. And hey, boys and girls, you know, as you're sitting out there in Facebook land and Spotify land, go to Facebook, find Chris and Mike Show, and drop a review, make a comment. Tell us what you want to hear, and we'll try to wrap a show just around you, right? Anything you want to say, Mark, and wrap up?
No, I think you keep on keeping on. And for those who are thinking, I might want to start a podcast, my best advice, just start. Even if you just record, just get a friend on a Zoom call, record the Zoom call, and talk about whatever it is that you're interested in. Make it 5-10 minutes. Put it up on your free YouTube channel. There you go. You've started your show. And just do another one and another one. And you just stack those things, and pretty soon you're on your way. So just start is what I would say.
Yep. Mike, got anything to say?
I agree
Last
with
words?
what he said. That's exactly what we did. We just started, and it was painful in the beginning, and it's progressively gotten better through the feedback that I hear from the people that are listening to the show. So obviously it's gotten better. You're always too close to as an artist, but I truly appreciate the feedback from people, positive and negative. I mean, we
Absolutely.
take constructive criticism just as well as anybody. So
How many episodes in are you guys?
This
is like
86.
90. No, it's like
No, it's 90?
96.
Oh, 96. Yeah. Okay.
96. Okay. Well, and I'll say this, and everybody's going to hear it. Episode 100. Need to make it special, guys.
Oh, absolutely. I've already thought
Yes.
about that.
Yeah,
That's already been in my head.
And so I'm
'cause,
saying
you
that to
know,
anybody
yeah.
who's listening. Find a reason. Your 50th episode, your 100th episode, play clips from things past. Reach out to prior guests going, hey, by the way, it was a blast. And here's something that very few podcasters do. Constantly reach out to the guests you've had on the past and tell them it was, hey, once again, we haven't talked for a couple of months, but it was a pleasure having you on the show. Here's a link to the show again. We're still getting buzz about it. So you leverage the notoriety of your guests to get more attention for yourselves, because you have to do some shameless self-promotion.
Well, let me ask you this real quick before we go. I've kind of, because he started spearheading that, is it good to have like Chris as the face of meeting that person for the first time? Is it good to have one person doing that?
Yeah, well, one of you has to kind of act as the quarterback in that capacity. You know what I mean?
Because I do a lot of the behind the scenes editing and, you know, like
Yes,
he
does.
seems to have taken that over, and he's really good at it. So like when I get an email through the Gmail for our service or whatever, I just forward it to him because he seems like a good front person.
Right, but so what's your title in all this, Mike? What's on your email? What's the title? Is your email set up? Because like I'm project manager at Star Worldwide Network Studios. Because Dave goes, Mark, pick out any title you want. So
We
what's
have
your
it
title,
set up
Mike?
as the Chris and Mike Show 20. What is it? Chris and Mike Show 2024 at gmail.com.
Something
Okay,
like
but
that.
your signature at the bottom. What are you, executive producer, Mike, or what are you?
Yeah,
A
you need to get a
co-host?
title.
Co-host?
Oh, co-host. Yeah.
There you go. Put that on the bottom. And then all the links, you know, because it's another thing I tell people is like, so you want to CC Chris and go, hey, so glad to hear from you. I'm going to connect you here with Chris because he handles a lot of the bookings of the guests and such like that. If you have any questions about how the show operates or computer issues and getting on with our show, hit me up. And
That
then,
answers
you know,
my question for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And just so you know, Mark texted me at like 7:58 a.m. He's like, dude, where's the link? I'm like, Mark, it's only 8 o'clock, and a little selfie of me, little man, in drop-off line is cool. I'm like, I'll get to it. He's like, well, you
dude,
know
that's
me,
the
brother. I'm like,
programmer in
yes,
me.
I
It's
do.
like
Oh,
last
yeah.
minute. Are you kidding? You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude,
Well,
it's like, are we good?
yeah,
What's up?
yeah,
and I knew
yeah.
that we were a phone call away, and this isn't a live show. And keep in mind, you guys, I spent 40 years on live radio.
know.
There's, you know,
I know.
5:59 has a meaning to me because straight up at 6 o'clock, shit's happening.
Well,
Well,
that's
that's-
another
yeah.
thing that I would like him to concentrate on, because his YouTube channel is outproducing all of our other channels by about 4 times. So I think he also needs to figure out how to go live on YouTube, because he's the originator of that channel. I can't do it. But I think we would actually be well served to go live to YouTube every week.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, even if you go live real quick going, hey, getting ready to get on the show here. It's the
that's
Chris
a
and
good
Mike
idea.
show. Interesting topic coming up. So join us wherever you're telling them to join us.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I'm going to put a link on Facebook. Oh, wait, got to go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Do shit
Yeah.
like that. And you can record that in advance because, and you should have 5 or 6 of those in your phone ready to go anyway. Oh my God, we're coming up on showtime.
Yeah.
Here we go. Have those ready to go so you don't have to worry about it in real time. And then you put it out. Nobody knows that you just, you recorded it last week.
I used to do that Real Talk USA. I'd have everything set up so when my show started Saturday morning, I would start dropping content as the show was going on, which led more people to listen to the show and led more people to the Facebook page and the YouTube page and all that kind of jazz. So I've never looked at it like radio, and maybe that's my error. I need to kind of focus on this like it's radio, because it's the same concept, but it's just on a computer.
Yeah, because remember,
Certain
you have a lot
aspects of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have a lot of audio listeners as well. I mean, because
yeah.
people get distracted and stuff like that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
just make some noise, dude. And if you have any questions on that, let me know. Glad to
I know.
help you.
I-
Because I have a whole look. You guys can't see it. Here is a checklist that I devised. This is like the first 30 things that every podcaster should think about, from support team to show prep to target audience. We talk about sponsors and advertisers. You want to sponsor an advertiser? Let's talk about the difference. Sponsor somebody who believes in you. Advertiser somebody who doesn't give a shit who you are.
Right.
They want to know who your audience is. And then what's your unique approach? And then do you have little benchmark segments you do where, hey, it's that time of the week where we answer your questions. It's our book of the week, our joke of the week, or whatever. And it's something that could be pulled out into a segment that could live by itself and maybe take off, like so many other things, like Hot Ones. The guy who did that, where he was eating hot wings and with celebrities as part of a larger show, but that hot wings thing took off. And so think about a benchmark that you do every week. That's that little 3-minute segment that people tune in for.
Yeah, see, this is all shit I did on the radio show. This is all shit I did on Good News Arizona. It's just
And then transcribe your show into words, because there's a lot of valuable words in this conversation. And put it up on your webpage, if, for people that are into text. And that those words are searchable. And then put those words into Spanish. I can go on and on. We could do another show. We should do a show sometime on folks who go, hey, I want to start a podcast.
Okay,
It's like,
we'll do that.
Let's-
That'd be awesome.
let's set it up, and then we can help
set
some
it up, yeah.
people, because a lot of people want to, and they don't know where to go, and a lot of people won't give them straight talk because they're always trying to charge them money for their opinion.
Right. So we'll have my people reach out to your people, Mark, and we'll get that set up.
We'll do it, buddy.
Hey, this is Chris and Mike Show. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Remember, if you're having a bad day, don't let the bad days win. Somebody loves you. Somebody needs you. Somebody will miss you if you're gone. So reach out for help. If it's not with me or Mike, go online, Google. You can find support groups, NAAA, all that kind of jazz. So just remember, don't let the bad days win, because somebody here loves you. And, there you have that.
Amen, brother.
Until next week, we'll talk to you guys later. Love you, Mike. Love you, Mark.
Love you too,
Thanks for-
brother.
thanks for
Pleasure to
tuning in.
meet you, Mark.
Yeah. Mark Jeffrey, ladies and gentlemen,
Beer cans, hit me up.
the living legend.
I know now. I will. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
We clear?
We are clear.
All right.
Quickly, we're gonna fly and disappear. Look the tablet, go insane. Feel the Jesus flow through your veins. On your journey, take it slow to the place where you will go. Feel the thrill behind your eyes. Feel the sorrow beneath your face. Take a moment Come on.